lucky enough or unlucky enough to have a flat tire or whatever. My name's Richard. I'm the general manager of Mavic West, and I've been invited along to give a talk on mechanical aspects of cycling and equipment maintenance. Allan may interject from time to time when he thinks I'm wrong.
I'm not that good with bikes.
I'm the general manager of Mavic West, as I said, and I've been a racing cyclist for 6 years back in the 70s, and I have done the Tour de France with Mavic, neutral assistance, which is different than being a team mechanic, definitely, because the work is a lot more limited, but you see things in a certain way, and we do quite a few races in the United States. I don't know, how many people here actively race right now? Has any of you guys seen us at races? Okay, so you know we're around. Our tech support program started in the 70s in Europe. We do Tour de France, Paris-Roubaix. We do a lot of big races. I don't know if in the video last night we saw the Mavic motorbikes. We're pretty well known for technical assistance worldwide. So we see a lot, and what I'll try to do this afternoon is answer questions, give you some information on what we see in the road and what can help you guys go to a race better prepared. Obviously, training is a very important part of aspect of racing. If you don't do that, you can't be competitive. But the bicycle is important too, and especially nowadays, as the equipment gets more sophisticated, index shifting, the STI systems and stuff like that, bikes are harder to maintain than they were before in some aspects, and so you have to be prepared. I remember when I raced in the 70s here, you had to be prepared yourself to take care of yourself at the race. There was no technical assistance. If you were at a race and you got a flat tire, well, tubulars under the saddle, you change your tire, and so you finished 15 or 20 minutes behind the rest of the riders in a road race. And the criterion was a different thing. You usually just dropped out, and well, that was it. Nowadays, it's sophisticated. The sport's leans more towards making it not a mechanical event as much as compared with car racing, for example, as an athletic event. The idea nowadays is you have a flat and a crit, you get a wheel change from the pit, and you're back in the race in one lap. But the bicycle maintenance is very important. I mean, you can, if you figure you spend all the hours training and preparing and making sure everything's right, and your bicycle isn't maintained properly, well, you go to races and you break a spoke, or your cable snaps on your derailleur, and everything you've done, paying for your gas to get to the race, and all the time you spent, it's for what? It's for nothing. So the bicycle maintenance from that aspect is very important. First thing I was going to discuss with you was cleaning bicycles. And I'll reflect a lot on the way I used to do it and know how to do it as compared to what I've learned in the years I've been working with Mavic and seeing how the pros do it. And there's a lot of things you can apply from the pros to yourselves, and there's a lot of things obviously you can't. Well, for one thing, with the pros, for Allan, he finishes a race, he rolls in on his bike, and he says, yeah, the rear derailleur needs working on, brake pads, front brake pads are low, and da-da-da-da.
If I remember it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get off the bike and I get on the next day and I think, God, I forgot to tell them that.
Right.
I tell them tonight, and they get up again the next morning and start saying, oh God, I forgot again.
And meanwhile, by the 14th stage, you can't stop anymore. So that's very important. But he has that. He can communicate with this mechanic and let him know what the problem is with his bike. Whereas for 95% of the riders in the United States, you're on your own as far as being mechanic. So it's very good. It's very important to be in touch with your bike. Know how to work on your bike. There are some races where, sure, you can go. Mavic will be there. The other tech support will be there, and they can help you out. But there's a lot of instances that are not, and you should always be prepared for the latter because, like I said, why spend all the money, the time, training, and whatever, and be let down by a mechanical disadvantage? So, first thing we're going to discuss is cleaning the bike. And when I first went to Europe and saw how these guys clean the bikes, I was totally amazed because when I used to race and I did it, well, every so often I'd take my bike and I'd take every little part, every little piece apart and get out the solvent and scrub and clean parts, and there's much, much simpler way to do it. And it's just a bucket with, this is what we use to keep our bikes clean. Some brushes, some sponge, degreaser, regular old dishwashing soap. So mix up a bucket of hot soapy water, and then just act like you're washing the car at the car wash. Just completely scrub the bike with a brush. A smaller brush will get into the derailleur areas and get that clean. Scrub the chain off. Just take a soapy brush on the chain and run it around the drivetrain, and you can get your bike immaculately clean with this method. And it takes 5 minutes versus.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
When you mix up your soapy water, try and put a lot of soap suds in, you know, like dishwashing detergent or something. Try and have the mixture so you've got a lot of suds and not much water, because if you're using more water than suds, I mean, you get into everywhere with water. So what the mechanics over there try to do is they have a lot of suds and wash it with suds.
Right.
So really, the suds, the soap keeps the water out of all the little tiny parts, and it really works good. You get more soap on it, so it cleans it as well. But don't clean the chain first and then do your frame.
Right. That's important too, because then you've got the greasy brush you're wiping all over your frame. That's important. Once you get that done, you can rinse the bike off and then hand dry it, and then go over take the lube of your choice, whether it's Pedro's, whatever it happens to be, and then lubricate all moving parts. And the advantage of a clean bike is that first of all, you're looking closely at your bike constantly, so you can see if there's potential problems there, cracks in the frame, problems with the cranks, and you're also more liable to notice something that you wouldn't just normally notice riding the bike. So, and also you don't have the disadvantage of getting in, first working with solvent and cleaning everything's terribly messy, and you're cleaning your hands as you're cleaning your bike with the soap. So.
Could you be a little more specific about what kind of lubricant would be best? I mean, like not WD-40 or something like that.
There's
3-in-1 oil, or
I just use motor car oil. I just get a little bottle, like if I've ever had machine oil or something. I just, when that's empty, you know, I just fill it up with motor oil. I put it's silly, you know, most of it's silly, but I put 8 drops on one side and 8 on the other. 8 on the top and 8 on the bottom as I'm turning it. And then I get a rag and not really hold it tightly, but run the chain backwards with running through the rag, you know, so you like rub the oil in instead of rubbing it off, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that way I find I'm not really getting my chain so dirty that it's going to be like covered in grit and oil and muck. Then you never get it clean. You wreck your sponges, you wreck your brushes, everything like that, you know. If it's really rainy and it's bad weather, then I'll have the same amount of oil on, but I'll smear in a bit of grease top and bottom, you know. And then after that race, if it's not washed off, you can wash it off with a bit of petrol. But if you only use a minimum amount of oil, just enough so it doesn't squeak and everything, like 8 or 10 drops, you rub it in. The next time if it starts to get a bit dry out training, do it again. You know, and that way it stays clean, because if it gets dirty, it doesn't run very well. So with a lot of oil, you're attracting. You know, a lot of these bike shops, I know even in Belgium as well, they use this spray stuff, you know. But our mechanics don't use, they just use normal oil as well, because the spray goes everywhere, you know, and then, you know, it's just a hassle. You know, they don't want to clean bikes. The guys at Peugeot, when I was there, wouldn't even put oil on. You know, and years after I left Peugeot, I still hear the same mechanics. I hear these guys, even Fignon's team, I hear Fignon's chain sometimes, creak, 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 really dry as a bone, because if the mechanic put grease on it, he had to wash it at night. He'd rather than if it rained, it washed the oil off, then he had a dry chain to work with, which is a bit slack, really.
Right. The thing is that when living here in Northern California, where we've had a drought for the last 6 years, you don't even start to come close to the conditions that they have in Europe, where they're riding the spring classics. I mean, they're training in the rain, they're racing in the rain, everything. That's a whole different equation as far as lubricating and cleaning a bike. Your bikes get 10 times as dirty, and require a lot more lubrication. And that heavy oil he describes there hangs onto the chain well in very wet conditions. In sunny California, there's a lot of lubes marketed now. Pedros, Saks, Paceline, all these lubricants out there. I mean, it's like if you go to Trifle, you go down to the Wheelsmith shop, and there's probably 3 or 4 lubricants you can
You
pick.
can just use regular 1030 instead of a little can for $8. I'd rather go with the 1030.
Yeah, that's true. It is a lot more economical. Absolutely.
It's a little thick though for your working parts like your brakes. And
Yeah,
That's right. That's too thick for that. Yeah.
Yeah, but for the chain, especially in very wet conditions.
But then really, do you think they need a lot of lubrication here on their working parts here in California for this type of weather?
Well, if they're washing their bike a lot,
Yeah.
yeah. But if
If it's only once a week that they're washing their bike, would
No.
you start putting oil on everything?
It's a week a month, yeah. It's a week.
Sorry guys.
It is really
you
dry.
could wash your bike once a week. I mean, it's so fast that it's amazing. And like I said, it is important to the overall function of the bicycle that you can keep track of what's going on with the bicycle. Are there any other questions in regards to just keeping the bike clean and looking it over? One thing when you're doing that, as far as maintenance goes, generally with bicycles, wheels are very important. I recommend that you have a set of racing wheels and a set of training wheels, absolutely. And it's hard to do, I know, but keep the racing wheels, only go on the bike before the race. As soon as the race is over, boom, racing wheels come off. Put covers on your good racing wheels, put the training wheels back on. And stay on the training wheels all the time.
What do the covers do for your wheels?
Well, when the wheels are being thrown, primarily what you're doing is you're protecting the tires. You're throwing your wheels in and out of the car, laying them on top of the bike or something. There's something that can poke the sidewall of especially if it's a tubular tire. Protects the sidewalls, protects them from ultraviolet also, because that's what eats rubber and makes tires deteriorate. And just you're less liable to ride them too, because there's always there's a situation of first of all, it's expensive to maintain a premier set of racing wheels and then train on them all the time. But then again, you've got the club ride or the club training ride in the middle of the week, and you're thinking, well, maybe I should ride my racing wheels there, so I can kick everyone's ass there at the training ride. Well, stay on the, I just really recommend keeping the good wheels for the important races where the
So when
money
you say
is.
good wheels, what are you saying? What kind of wheels do you do?
Well, either tubular wheels. I think anything that has anything like a Victoria CX on it is a good wheel. I mean, that's a $60 tire. Or a good Michelin clincher, their top of the line clincher.
Would you say if you had like 2 pairs of wheels and they were the same wheels, same hubs, same spokes, same rims, just keeping one pair apart, so because your training wheels just get so damaged from the weather and from the washing and from just use, that the racing wheels are just stronger than
Yeah, exactly.
They're less battered, they shine better, they're racing wheels.
Exactly.
They're like stepping out shoes for Saturday night.
Right, you don't have the, a wheel in itself is a machine, and it is, every time you ride it, it's working, okay? It's doing all kinds of work. And you have less spoke fatigue, the tires don't wear out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're less likely to hit a pothole and damage your racing wheel. And then, if you want to go to the extreme, you can pay a lot of money for a top racing rim and one pothole. They're going to racing wheels. It's much more economic just to have one set for racing and one set. Minimum. I'm sure there's people here with more than two or three sets of wheels, and they have their time trial wheels, and then they have their regular road racing wheels, and then they have their training wheels. Yes?
I'm just going to make one comment about chain cleaning. If people find they wear out their chain rings a lot, it might have a lot to do with whether they keep their chain clean and whether it's getting stretched, because the pull bearings wear out in the chain. Chain gets a little long, it gets grit in it, it's only pulling on one or two teeth on that chain ring, and it'll pull them over, you'll see they get that kind of
That
slope.
hook, absolutely, that's an important
And
point.
they wear out, and they cost like $80. So-
Exactly. That's something else I was going to mention.
And your cogs at the back as well.
Yeah.
Compare the chain to chain, even if you buy the cheapest chain.
Yeah, just
See, this black chain is like as good as anything you'll buy.
Exactly. And you should consider a chain a throwaway item, a dispensable item, basically. With the chain under tension, if you measure 24 links, if you're anywhere close to 12 and 1/16 of an inch, just throw the chain away and put a new chain on. It's much easier to replace the chain on a very regular basis than replace the whole drivetrain down the road. Some cogs, even if you do change your chain constantly, you will have cog wear no matter what you do. But you won't have the type of wear that you'll get from running an old chain on your chain set. Front chain set will last a long, long time because it's got a lot of teeth engaging chain all the time. Rear cogs have less chain engaged, so they're going to wear faster no matter what you do, even if you go with
What about just like, I usually measure mine, like if I just put my
right,
finger there
that's
and
another
pull that
method.
out, you know?
Right.
Like
What's
after-
that now?
You can just grab, get your see my fingers are dirty, you can put it on the chain there, just pull it out, you see the slack in the chain there? How it moves out? Well, if it's worn and you can see two teeth, you know, then you know it's time to check your chain away. Because like I said, you know, even with Dura Ace stuff, a lot of the teams are, instead of using Dura Ace chains, they're just using Cetus chains, because Dura Ace chains cost heaps of money. They work really good, but a good Cetus chain will change on Dura Ace equipment anyway. It's cheaper and it's really, look at him smiling down there from the bike shop. It's chuck away material, you know. Because even riding the teams like Panasonic, you know, I've changed a lot of chains myself because I won't wait for the mechanics because I want a bike that's running good. I don't want to wreck my wheels at home and have to bloody go down to the bike shop and change my 15 and 14 and 16 sprockets all the time. So I just change the chain myself.
I'm smiling because that's what I do.
Yeah, well, the
Yeah.
Cetus
chain.
Cetus
Yeah.
ATV works better than a Dura-Ace chain.
Yeah. Where we change that?
The Cetus ATV, it's a narrower chain.
Mountain bike
For a
chain.
hybrid
What
wire.
color is that?
It's black too.
Yeah.
Actually, it's silver, but
It's
black-
silver, yeah.
I think the black.
It's like this.
better.
It costs $2 more than the other CD. $10. Still cheap.
I usually have a little
35.
sort of a detergent can, you know, like, well, I don't know if it comes here in detergent, if you buy bulk detergent, you know, like, and you have a handle on it, and you've got a screw-on lid at the top.
Yeah.
Well, if you've got something like that, I usually get that when it's empty and turn it sideways, so it's coming out there, and the screw-on top's there, and I cut the top off it, you know. So then you can just have your chain slack off here. Have your slack off there. I usually hold my can about here, the handle here, put petrol inside. I always use standard because it's got a little bit of oil in it, you know, don't use super. And just let it run through there, get my brush, and just brush that quickly across, and then just turn the chain, brush that, turn it, brush that, turn it, brush that, and then go to the top and stick it through here, brush the top as you go around as well. Start off doing that, and that way you get a lot of grime off, but you know, here in California, like I said, you're not going to have the really good stuff, but if your chain is really dirty, you want to get it clean, and you can do your sprockets the same way as well. You keep your sponges and your brushes and everything a bit cleaner, because this is really the yucky stuff, you know. And then I just have an old sponge. When I'm washing my bike, I use suds on that as well. Just grab it, get a whole heap of suds and water, just run it straight through that sponge and just let it all run under the ground, you know. Just do it again, get some more water, do it again. It comes up really good. If you just dry it off a rag, put your oil on, you got a brand new chain again.
How's the best way to determine if your chain's stretched too far?
Well, you can use Allan's method where he pulls the chain back here.
He was talking about chain rings, I think, on that, wasn't he?
No, he's talking about chain wear. Yeah, you can pull it away, or you can take a 12-inch ruler and lay it across 24 links because it's a half-inch length.
Oh, okay.
And when you see if it's reading 12 and a 16th, because you know you have
Okay, gotcha.
100 plus links there, each one of those links gets 100th of an inch. That's an inch. You're going to have some real problems at that point. So it doesn't take that much to stretch a chain.
How many
60
links? How many links? 12 links.
100 plus.
How many links do you want to lay across?
24.
24 links with a 12-inch ruler.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Each one being a half inch.
Oh, yeah, right.
Half inch.
And if there's any discretion, you can check the chain light.
Yeah, if it's
good.
Yeah.
That's pin to pin?
Measuring pin to pin.
Pin to pin, center to center on the pins, yeah.
Measuring anything to anything, as long as you're picking
Yeah,
the same
yeah.
point.
Would you allow a little bit of discrepancy before you chuck it away?
As far as,
Well, I mean, you know, if she's done 300 kilometers, it's probably gonna move a little bit, isn't it?
what I do is I put it under tension. I actually just put hand weight on the pedal with the wheel in, like this, and just measure it that way.
Oh, okay. How many
Did you say
kilometers
a
do you,
16th of an inch, is that what you said?
Yeah.
how many kilometers do you usually get out of the chain? If you're measuring it that way.
It depends on the chain.
Just for example, is 500, 1,000?
I think 1,500 K.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
There's another good reason to throw your chain away if there's any doubt at all, because if a lot of stuff can break on your bike, if your chain breaks, you're stuck.
Right.
Yeah, unless you got.
You can lose almost anything else.
Exactly.
Bars.
You can whip it.
If you've got any, like I suppose all of you guys, if you're changing your chains, you know, drop to the bike shop and get them to do it. Because I've even had mechanics like in my hometown in Belgium, who's got the bike shop there. He sells so many bikes, and he has pros that go to his bike shop as well. He'll put a Jerry Ace chain on my bike, which I'll replace from the team later, and he won't pin it properly, you know, and the pin won't be through. Like I nearly started the Wincanton Classic with a pin that wasn't right through. You know, you go up the first hill, you know, break your chain, you land on your face.
Yeah, this happened
And my
like,
chain was jumping. I said to the mechanic, look, there's something wrong with this wheel. You know, changed the wheel, went for a ride again for the first start, still something wrong. And he had a look at the chain, yep, the pin's not through properly. He's damaged the pin as he went to put it through. So like, just take it to the bike shop, you know. If they're selling you the chain, then just ask them if they'll put it on for you. That's the best way to do it, you know. They'll cut it the right length as well.
Dura-Ace chains are especially finicky because they require a special tool to install them anyway. Or that's probably, could have been the problem with using a Dura-Ace tool.
Just use Cetus.
If you make a mistake, you just put a link in, can't you?
Union ATV chains are another good cheap alternative too that work really well.
Yeah, Union chains. Good chains.
Did you ask?
How do you measure your chain? Can you have a brand new chain on there? Or do you like put it in the biggest chain ring?
What I do is that's subjective because Mavic derailleurs like a lot of chains in general. What I normally do is I put it in the small chain ring and the small cog in the back, and then I just put as much chain there as it looks like it will. The derailleur won't.
Lay over it well.
Yeah, run into itself. And then what you got to do is you got to go up to your big cog in the back, and then make sure that your jockey wheel's not touching the cog there. And as soon as you have that determined, it's fine. It's no big deal if you say, oh well, the chain's hanging slack, or it's riding on this cog here. You can just take another link out or add a link.
What do you think about using the second cog for distance? Because he's not really going to ride small ring 13 or 12. And that gives you an extra length with your big ring if you want to ride it. You're out with your 52 and you want to ride 19 or 21 or something like that.
That's
You
true.
get an extra
That's
link
true. You
there.
can do that by taking your chain length on this cog. It gives you a little more chain when you be up in this other extreme here.
Yeah, because the derailleur otherwise will be stretched much tighter and you won't have much.
If you're running in a straight block, it's no big deal. If you're going to head for the Alps,
Or even hills up back here.
I had a question for you. Barnett says to have it in the big ring in the front, and your biggest gear, and to set it so the jockey wheels are perpendicular to the ground.
What's your biggest gear?
Be like
Not your biggest
5312 or
gear.
5213, whatever.
Oh, really?
So it's in perpendicular.
Yeah, and the cage and the jockey wheels should be straight up.
So
and
what
down.
happens when you're in the 21 then?
I don't know. He says to set it that way, and that will be the ideal chain length.
Put it in your 12 there, but that's certain derailleurs like a 90-degree angle. Some of them like 96 or 94.
yeah, like that system wouldn't work with the old Mavic derailleur, our old non-index derailleur. That thing, I mean, as much chain as you could give that derailleur, it would take.
What about camping? No, that wouldn't be good for that either. That'd be too stressed.
Yeah,
With
I
the
think
camping, no.
what happens is you get the dragging out like this too much. This is even
Too
closer because this is a big three wheel. This is said 23 there, so.
24.
Get another link in there easy.
Yeah,
See,
probably could take another link.
The more chain you can have on your racing gears, the better it is. You really find that. It's like it's a really fine line. But like I said, the shop usually lows it. If you're riding, say, 13, 14 or 15, 16 even, the more chain you've got, the more wraparound, the better the bike will run, you know. They're the racing gears, really.
Right.
And of course, like we said before, you've got to accommodate for your big ring. Normally, I don't ride 52-21, you know. That's too much angle, you know. I'd rather go to the inside ring, use 42-15, 42-14. If I get on climbs, the real strong guys, like even when I was at the Worlds in Ronsa in '88, come past the last lap, quickly on attack, went off the front, you know, over the line. He was riding 52-15. I had 42-14 because for my ability, if I crack on 52-15 or 17, you know, there's only 2 sprockets left, you know, and it's so much tension on the chain and it doesn't roll if it's steep. Some of these really strong guys like to ride big gears like that, but I always go to my small ring and I'd rather ride 13 or 14 with the inside ring, you know. Even the Lunsan ring, a lot of the guys ride big ring and they'll ride the 17, 19 or 21 up there like Chiapucci and these blokes who are really, really strong. I'd rather ride 45 ring on the inside and ride 15 and get a straight chain.
Right. Less chain wear, less cog wear, less friction.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot less
better
work.
running,
Right.
less energy loss.
Absolutely. And also, you can't say, okay, if you have two identical bikes as far as the gruppos on them or whatever, but the frames were different. One was a carbon this or a steel that. You can't just say, oh, well, I'll just make every chain the same length because it's affected by chainstay length too, the length your chain is to be, so you have to be aware
If you
of that.
don't know about it, bike shop's the best place.
Yeah.
Wheelsmith's got good
Yeah.
mechanics. Or big bike shop around, you know, that's the thing.
Just give our auto call or financial those two.
I hear they'll come by your house and do it.
What about keeping pressure in your race tires between races? I mean, is there a check on?
There's a lot. I'll be interested to hear your input on this because there's a lot of talk about that. Victoria says in their brochure that it's not a problem to keep your tires inflated. Just tubular tires are going to lose air anyway.
Yeah, they're not going to stay no matter what.
Wobbles it. Even weeks and months. I'll bet you if I go home next week, I've been away for 2 months, I'll only have lost a kilo maximum.
Yeah.
But then again, you won't race on them, like tractor tires.
So the old school is always to let the air out of your tires. It's
Yeah.
easier on the casing. You
But
know?
don't you think that's because in the old days, when I first started cycling as well, you got a pair of set of extras like I got from a friend in Australia. He's had them in his cupboard for 10 years.
Right.
He's looked after them. But now you don't do that with set of extras.
Right.
You go to the shop, you buy a pair of set of extras, you put them on your wheel to race tomorrow.
Right. Exactly.
Because they're cured different.
Right.
That I think that has the same effect with tires as well. You don't need to let them down because they're not, like, I don't know what it is, not real material or whatever they're using now.
Yeah. Synthetics. These synthetics tend to stretch.
Yeah,
less,
when
but
it used to be real cotton or real
Right,
silk, and
right.
if you kept that 9 or 8 or 10 kilo in it,
Good stretch.
yeah.
It makes sense in a lot of ways.
But I still let them down though, it's funny.
Yeah.
I'm still in the habit if I race to let them down.
Yeah.
Put the tire covers on, stick to your boot, let them down.
Exactly.
Well, especially if you put your bike in a hot car with 120 pounds of pressure in it, and you put take your wheels off and put them in a hot car after a race and the sun's coming in, you can blow your tires up that
Yeah.
much because it'll heat up even more. You race at 8 in the morning with 120 pounds. By 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it's expanded a lot more. You put them in a hot car, it can blow up that way.
Does anybody want to ask about tyres, just while we're on this subject?
Yeah, what do you?
Yeah.
What a good race. What about tires?
What about tires?
Absolutely.
I mean, we meant on your car. You need to.
Oh,
Yeah, we're not talking about the Porsche.
Pirellis, I loved it, like way quicker though. With Panasonic we used Clement. We also used Victoria for a couple of years, and with Tulip this year we've used Walbert at the start of the year, but we changed really quick and went Continental. Like really quick. So I've had a bit of a spectrum with them. I really like Victoria CXs. They're a real sturdy tyre, last a long time, good strips, but got no life. And if you've got Clermont Criteriums. They're a bit less strong than Victoria, you know, CXs or something. CX Satis I really like. They were good tyres, but they're really difficult to get now. But Clermonts have got more life than Victorias, you know. If you want to ride a big race like even Criterium or a yellow label Satis, they're really lively tyres. They cost more money, I know, but you know, if you
Can't
use
get
them
them
for good
anymore.
races,
It's
can't get
Get
them.
them around.
No?
I've got
Virtually
some, I've got some 7 or 8 year old ones that I'm still running that can't find them. They're really light.
Victoria's in the United States, Victoria and Continental,
So-
are the two most.
Yeah. Then I reckon, although I've really got good rave about Continental as well, like we had, at the start of the year with Wobble, we just punched it wheel after wheel after wheel, you know. And we changed because our tyres were given by Miata, because the Dutch people who bring in Miata bikes, and they were brought in complete, you know, so they had a deal with Wobble, so it was their deal, you know. But we said we don't want to ride these tyres anymore, so we got Continental and they paid for those. That was sweet. But other teams like Motorola rode them the whole year because they wanted the contract money from Walbert to make up their budget, which they really count on. So they apparently had a meeting after the Tour de France, you know, are we going to keep riding with these tyres or are we going to give them away and not get our budget, you know, to make it difficult for the team. I found that was really good, like to ask the riders that so they know what they're up against. And apparently they all voted to keep riding with them, and they went to a race, I remember in Grand Prix of Duisburg, 8 or 9 rider team, and they'd worn out all their wheels after 80 k's they had no wheels left. And one of the guys yelled out and said, oh, Phil's punctured, you know, and like all the Motorola guys had ducked to the back and Phil only stopped for a piss, you know. They had no wheels left, all their wobbles had gone. But there was, I must say, it's a new wobble type of tyre they were using to insert some stuff that didn't let them leak, you know. They were like tubeless or something.
Yeah, car tire.
Yeah, but they're not perfected, you know. Like I've used Michelin clinchers, that's what you call them?
Yeah.
Clinchers when I was at Peugeot in 85, they'd just come out. And we had to try those and they were really bad then as well. That like turned me off them for life. Run over a pothole, you've got a pinch tyre, you've got a flat tyre. Come out of the corner with one type of rubber and you'd be stuck to the road. You'd feel like someone was holding onto your saddle. But they were great in the rain. And then another type of tyre were really good but really slippery. So that was only an evolution section as well. So maybe there are good wobble tyres but not those ones. I'm just not a wobble fan, that's all. If I was going to suggest anything, I'd say either Victoria CXs or Clermont Criteriums.
Yeah.
What do you think?
For two wheelers.
Yeah, for two wheelers.
We use Michelin clincher for our tech support program, and have had very good success with them. Like you said, though, there's various road conditions and in Europe you're dealing with the extremes of road conditions. I mean, you can go from a super freeway onto pave, and a tire that we didn't find on the freeway is suddenly
Bottoming out.
yeah, it's useless. You can barely stay on your bike.
But how was it the Castorama with those guys or Bunyo team don't punch it then if they're on Parachute Bay? How wise is it? They've got some new type of rim now that they don't bottom out on, pinch the inner tube.
I don't know. You know, one thing I think that with clinchers, for sure, I think United States riders in general tend to run their tires overinflated, and so they're very rigid ride, but harsh. Maybe part of the reason for that is you can get away with that here. The races aren't as long, but you're doing 250K race, it beats you to death. And I read an article recently by the team mechanic from Castorama, and he was recommending inflation pressures that the team uses because they use Michelin now, and he says 90 pounds in the front and 105 in the rear.
Do you know what sort of kilo that is?
Six.
Bar 6 and bar 7.
Yeah.
So that, for me personally, that's bloody flat, you know?
Yeah, but you know, it is. But you know what? If you ride, the aspect of the tubular versus the clincher,
different
which is the
aspect,
wire on, it's the ride is way too harsh with the clincher with 100 plus, especially in the front. It's just like
They get a better ride.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about the tubular is that since it's with the clincher, it's the rim
It makes the ride.
and the tire have to work together because the rim has to help the tire do its job. Tubular, it's like even though it's glued onto the rim, the tubular tire can do the job itself. It's much more flexible, it's a much more round tire, so that you tend not to have the high spot, and it tends to, for cornering, you tend to roll over smoother, and generally it's just a better handling tire. Although, from when you were an ACBB riding the clinchers, was that one? Yeah.
No, with Peugeot, with Protein.
Really?
We started with Michelin.
Okay.
They did okay this year with them, though. I mean, what is it, Carrera rode them, and...
Well, Carrera's been riding them for
Dax.
about 4 years,
Yeah.
but we rode them with Peugeot in '85. Carrera started riding them, I think, in '87. I remember Kelly was really upset because Carrera was riding with these tyres at the start of the year in Torino Adriatico. Those guys crashing everywhere. I don't mean just every now and then. Crash.
Are they better now?
Well, yeah, they've gone through the evolution and then ended up blowing out. They're not running. They're not pinching and blowing out. They're not hitting just a little rock and blowing out now. But like then it was really dangerous, and Kelly was upset because Carrera was taking all this money from Michelin to ride these tyres, which was endangering the whole bunch. That was what he was upset about.
One thing that you're talking about, two different pro teams. I know that the Castorama team rides a 23 millimeter.
Yeah, right. I was going to say that.
And Carrera rides a 20 millimeter.
But now, even Carrera don't have any problems anymore now either. It's like they've sorted all this
Well, they
stuff
have
out.
the Super HD. Super HDs are also a new tire that weren't available in '86.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's supposed to be a
The
whole lot better.
clincher has evolved in that
Of course, it's
7
normal, yeah.
years.
You were the guinea pig,
It's a
Al.
much better tire, yeah.
So what pressures do
Definitely
you
wasn't
use
there.
then on these? Are you going with the 95?
Personally?
Or,
Yeah.
or
Well,
Ford?
I found since lowering the tire pressure, the ride's a lot more comfortable. It's more like a tubular ride. The tire's more supple. Like, I think a tubular just normally is a much more supple tire.
Yeah, because it's by itself, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't that pretty much depend on the rider's weight too?
Yeah.
It does. When I'm sure when the Castorama mechanic said that, like the heaviest guy he's got on his team is what's the Belgian guy there that there's a friend of Lamon's. Oh, Porto. No.
You're thinking of Z, you're thinking of Lammert's.
Yeah, Lammert's. He's probably the heaviest guy. I'm sure he has more tire pressure, but the average guy on that team is probably what Lamont lives.
You're thinking of the wrong team. You're thinking of Z, and you mean
Oh.
Castorama are all skinny.
Yeah, they're all
Arnie
skinny.
Reese is probably the biggest guy in that team.
Yeah.
And what's he?
Probably 160 pounds.
Oh, well, we got almost 100 over him.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some big guys in Bunya's team though.
Yeah.
There's some big guys there. Tibaldi and guys like that,
Big
they weigh
sprinters.
quite a bit.
Yeah.
You know, something I read that was very interesting that relates to this topic is that although Castorama is sponsored by Michelin for those tires, on the Alto stage, LeBlanc was riding handmade French tubulars. He was riding Dugas 200 gram.
Who was?
LeBlanc was riding tubulars.
I got Dugas as well, and they're beautiful tires.
Yeah, those are beautiful.
I got a pair of Dugas Grand Prix of Nations. I pull out of the cupboard there, the finest tires I've ever ridden in my life.
Which tire?
Dugas they're called. They're handmade French.
G-A-S-T.
Yeah, they're just made just outside of Paris, but they're really, I don't know, we can't even remember where I got them from now. But I used a pair in '86 for some different races. I used to race with 10 kilo all the time. Like, I really buzz at kilos now.
Yeah.
Like our mechanics for our tubers, they only put 7 and 7.5 in. If I go to race by myself, I'll put 9 in. I'll put 9 in CXs, I'll put 9 in criteriums, you know.
But that's what they did to LeBlanc, rather than, they had one of the super light equipment, so, you know, they said, well, we're sponsored by them, but this is too important of a stage. And-
I've seen other riders, like even Bunyal he'll ride tubular sometimes as well.
Well, it's a technical consideration is more important than the commercial thing. I mean, that's what's most important.
Well, with the Michelins, I found when it rains, they just get flats like crazy.
Yeah.
You can't ride them.
There's sticky rubber or something, they pick up stuff. I know the Avocets, the early Avocets were really bad. It was really sticky rubber. You can corner real well on them, the slicks, but they would just attract glass. Just suck
Some
it
of the guys, you know, say to me, you know, even in Belgium they're using them like clinchers. And how come you don't use clinchers? And well, I bought a box of these Wolver, I say I didn't like Wolver, but bought Wolver Invulnerables, you know.
Yeah.
They got a steel mesh underneath the top layer. And I have 8 kilo on those all the time. They're not a very fast tyre. But I've done 3,000 kilometres with 2 tyres. That's front and back, not changed them or anything, in January when it was like, you know, anything between 3 and -5. Rain, snow, ice. riding on cycle paths, and those rocks and everything. And the thing is with these tyres, with those environmentals, they get cuts all around, everywhere. There's cuts and holes and gapes and everything, you know. 3,000 kilometres, I mean, you know, you can't tell me that that's not good. And normally they don't punch that. What usually happens is because of all these cuts, water seeps inside and the bag gets warped. So you feel when you're riding along that the bag warps a little bit and you say, right, time to change it. And if it do get a flat tyre, it's usually just, you know, full blowout. I still got, I think I was telling one of the guys from the shop the other day, I still got about 15, you know, and while I'm still using them, I'm not thinking about changing anything else. They're really fantastic. And they're pretty cheap as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the bottom line, I think, is that there's a lot of alternatives tire-wise out there. I myself personally always raced on tubulars. That's all there was available then. And I think that is the ultimate feel, ride, all-around tire.
What do you think about clinchers for training? And
Clinchers, that's what I say. The thing about clinchers is they're easy to repair. You get a flat on the road, and you just...
It's a hell of a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
It's a lot cheaper. And then that just reinforces the idea of having a racing set of wheels, because you can pay 45 to 60 bucks for a ZX.
You can't get them for much less than 40.
And you keep those as your good racing wheels, and then you just train on clinchers.
Yeah.
It's amazing though, in the last 7 years since I've been with Mavic, it used to be 50-50 clinchers, tubulars, and now it's more like 20% tubulars, and right, 80%.
I just want to say one thing about tubulars as well. If you're racing on tubulars and you only race once a week, you know, when you come home, if you're washing your wheels after the race or just, you know, before you let them down, check it, you know, just go around your strip, make sure if there's any cuts, you know, just try and open it up before you let it down when it's still expanded, open it up with your thumbs or get a screwdriver, don't be frightened to get in there, because usually there's a lot of little pieces of glass that'll stick in the tyre, and they're the ones that cause the punches, you know.
Right.
Keep all that glass out of there, because what that little pieces of glass does, it gets in there and the next time you ride it, it irritates it, you know. Irritates it, wears it, rubs it, makes the hole bigger, you hit a rock straight through. It's not the rock that does the damage, it's the little piece of glass that's inside. If you keep getting that out each time, you'll have much better life out of your really expensive tyres.
You see the team mechanics after the race when they're watching the bikes, they'll take the wheel and they'll inspect every inch of the tire for cuts and things inside the cuts, or that to just affect the life of the tire later on.
What sort of cuts will you ride within a tire? I mean, I know my training tires get basically sort of pretty well slashed up before I bag them. As far as for racing, will you race on a tire that's got a surface cut on it, or do you like to get rid of it, get something new because it's too dangerous? Or
I'll race on a tyre that's anything but through the bag.
okay, so it can have
It
some.
can
wear
even
and
be
tear.
down to the bag. That's my personal idea. They cost a lot of money. I'll race on them until they're down to the bag if I get the glass out. You can usually see, you know, if you
Oh, yeah.
if you got the glass out, you let the top air out of the tyre and you open up that cut with your fingers or something, you can see if it's cut through the bag. If it's cut through the bag and you see a little speck of the tube, you better take and try and get it fixed.
Right.
That's even better.
In case it's not clear, in American we'd say casing.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay, no, it's the bag.
Yeah.
That's right, it'll bag.
What do you do with the tech support wheels as far as that goes? As far as when do you take a tire? You get back at the end of the day from tech support. You look them over. When do you decide it's time to chuck the tire?
Anytime it involves, I mean, you can have tread lacerations, but anytime you can see anything that's going to be affect the casing of the tire, and you can tell because the tire will start to deform there in that spot, and you can see the deformation. You can say, okay, that cut's starting to cut through the casing, because with 107 atmospheres of pressure in there, that's when it's going to deform from a deep cut.
Some of our tyres with the team as well, from the Panasonic when we had Clermont criteria, we were riding the stage race like the Giro or the Tour or something. And sometimes you check your back tyre, you know, there's no tread on it hardly. They just let it go. Just let it go till it's nearly knackered, you know. If there's no cuts in it or anything, you just about wear the whole tread out. It's there only putting 7 to 7.5 kilo and it gets a really good run. Whereas if I'm riding my own wheels, I put 9 kilo and, you know, then you get a square top, you know, like because of that pressure, you're riding right on the tip of the thing, which makes the top flat.
Another good thing to remember, especially with your racing wheels, is, no, it's not always easy to do the day of a race or the after a race because, you know, you're wiped out and tired. All you can think about is eating and going to sleep or whatever. But the next day, check your wheels. When you clean your bike after the race, check your wheels, take the covers off and check them before the race the next weekend. You don't want to get to the race on Saturday and take your cover off and go, oh no, with the tubular, here's a big cut, I can't ride this thing, and think, oh, I'll just glue a new tire on right now and ride a crit in 90 degrees, you're going to end up on your ass because the tire's going to roll.
Well, I've seen a lot of mechanics glue once the tires back together and once they're like slit. What sort of glue do they use?
Glue the tires.
Yeah, like say you
got a cut in it.
Yeah, you got a cut.
Well, there's different 3M products. There's stuff that looks like liquid rubber and that sort of thing.
Fast tack.
Fast tack, not exactly the same thing. That's glue tire, tread stopping stuff. It's black. You can get in there. It's sort of cosmetic, really. I mean, after 50 miles, it's gone. It's gone.
Because of the movement of the tire.
Yeah, exactly. It might
I just
take
have
a
one
lot.
question about tubulars. How much glue do you put on? And what takes the glue off when you're changing tires? And do you have to take the glue off, the old glue?
Well,
Package.
that's an art almost.
Yeah.
It's very critical when you glue on a tire that you have just the right amount of glue. Not too much, not too little. Too much glue is as bad or worse than too little glue. I find best thing for me, without taking this into a big thing on mounting tires, put a coat on it, take a new rim, clean the rim off with alcohol or something, make sure you get any manufacturing residue off there. Put one coat on the rim, let it set up, put another coat on. At the same time you're putting that.
How do you put the coat on?
Well, I put a strip of glue down the center, then I take my finger in a baggie, so I don't, once you get that shit on your finger, boy, it's like, for the next week you won't be picking your nose, I mean, and just get it very smoothly, evenly around the rim, around all the eyelet holes, so that, and right out to the edge of the rim. At the same time, be putting a coat on the casing of your tire carefully, and it's a very messy job. I mean, I've seen guys that have never, it's something like has to be passed down from generation to generation, properly mounting tires. I've seen guys that have gone out and said, oh yeah, I'm going to, just got a bike, say, I'm going to mount my tubular tires. See them an hour later, they come back to the shop. They've got glue up to here on both arms. They've got glue all over the rim. They've got glue all over the tire, and the tire's still not on the rim.
I think that's what all of us do the first time.
Yeah.
Stretch your tires first, too. You'll never, ever get it on.
Yeah. Put the tire on and that's another good point. For racing wheels, if you have a couple trashed rims, tubular rims, don't throw them away. Keep them for stretching tires. Take a brand new tire, you put it on the rim, and inflate it, and leave it there for a little while, and it'll stretch the casing a little bit, and it'll ease mounting the tire.
What's the best compound to take off fast tack off the rim?
Ooh, that's
Don't use it.
They make tire cement solvent.
Water
gas.
solvent.
Gas works great.
Yeah.
And a brush.
Well, to go back to what you do, while you're saying about getting glue off, I don't usually worry about the glue. Like you're saying, that's the best way to do the base. The base is really important because if you haven't got a base, you can roll a tire just because you rip the base right off, you know. Getting the solvent off the rim is really important, like with alcohol, petrol, whatever you want to use, you know. But I usually get a screwdriver as well, you know, and really gouge into that rim. Sounds a bit funny, but I make zigzags across the rim all the way around. Then you put your glue on after you've washed it again, wiped it off with a rag, put your glue around, but don't put too much on, you know, and if you get some on the edges of the rim, wipe it off with petrol again so you get it nicely off. And put your second coat on. I'd really put 3 coats on new rims. But then after that, when that's set, you can, you know, then you're right forever basically, because that's your base. And what I do after that, I just get the tube. I always use tubes, it's bloody easy when you don't get everything dirty. And I'm not a mechanic. Take the lid off, push it hard against the rim, and just lightly push it, and just make a trail right around the middle of the centre of the rim. Don't like put a great big bloody strip there and then stick your tyre and have it coming out the edges and everything like that. And I've never rolled a tyre of my own, and I'm really safe with my tyres. Put a strip, that's all you need. Put your tyre on, pump it up, and it'll be good, you know. I never put glue on the tube either, the tire
Really,
either.
really?
Do you think that's good?
For most people, I think they have better luck doing that.
Putting some glue on the rim,
On the
tire.
Yeah.
You inflate it a little bit, and just run a
Inflate
strip
it
around?
right and just put a little on the casing.
Just like you would press it hard, just run a slip around?
You know, yeah, it's like insurance, in that not having it done it before and just knowing exactly how much to get on the rim. If you do it right, like Allan's method, and the timing is right, and you get the tire on, in relatively quick amount of time, and pump it up right away, and you can sort of peel back the tire as you're doing it. Make sure your glue contacts are good all the way around. Then also, when you put your tire on, inflate it a little bit and check the alignment right then and there. Because if you don't check the alignment of the tire on the rim, it'll set up and then you'll get out there to be doing this number on the...
What I usually do is when I've got the glue on there, just put your valve in, stretch it as you go, and put your tire on, and then just grab the hub and like put your weight on it and roll it along the ground while it's half flat, while you've just got like a kilo and a half in it. And then you've got it contacted everywhere on the rim, you know. Stick it back, hold it up, and then you can just like spin it and see if it's not straight, and then you can straighten it up. So it's contacted and it's straight, and it's there really good, you know. Right.
Any more question on tires?
Good question, good thing to
We
talk
wore that
about.
tire out?
Yeah, oh, it's important, isn't it? I mean, I hate guys bloody going out training. I was out with a guy actually a few years ago, and now his name's Jan Hussens. Anybody heard of him? He was third in the Wincanton Classic this year, and he was second in Paris Tours a couple of years ago. But he went out training with us, with me and Mark Sergeant, and Mark was Belgian champion then. We used to train together all the time. We had a couple of guys out with us. And Jan had just turned pro and he hadn't trained all winter. He didn't know about winter training or anything, and he was so unfit, it was incredible. And he was in a shocking state every day. Anyway, we'd go out training. One day it was raining and he had a puncture. He took his back wheel out. So like we always do, because it's cold and everything, we help the other guy. One will take his pump off, one will take his spare out, he'll unroll it, someone will pump it up while he's getting his tyre off. He just grabbed his tyre and just pulled it off like that. I said, what the hell are you doing? No glue on your rim. He said, I didn't have time yesterday. I said, you didn't have time? I said, how dare you come out here and risk making us crash? I said, if I fall behind you, mate, it won't be your best day. I said, I don't care if you crash, that's all right, but if you make me crash or someone else crash, that's shit, you know? You've got to get your act together. He was really pissed off, but, you know, that's the way to be.
You get suspended for doing that in races here. If you do that in a race, you get suspended.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys who do that though. You guys aren't supposed to do that.
I mean, sometimes I'll do that, okay. If I've come home from training, I've got an important meeting, I've got a whole day of rush or something, I've punched it the day before I'm going out by myself. I'll know about it, you know, so I'm conscious of it. But normally, I'll stick it on, it only takes 2 seconds to stick another tyre on anyway.
If you're good.
Yeah, once you get the knack of it a little bit. But when there's other guys around, you know, you've got to really be responsible if you haven't got glue on that. But it's not so bad if there's a lot of glue on it, because usually it stays sticky. But if you haven't got time to put glue on, a good trick is just get a rag, put a bit of petrol on it and run around the rim, you know. You make it...
Livens up the glue.
Yeah, you liven up the glue, put your... That's only if you've got a lot of glue on there, because otherwise you rip your base off.
Right.
That's why I was asking about glue remover, because I just started using tubulars and I bought some glue remover to take the old glue off, and all it did was just spread glue all over the rim, and it just stayed glue, you know, I mean, I got glue everywhere.
Did someone tell you how to take the glue off, though?
They just say, put it on, wait a few seconds and wipe it off, and that was bullshit, it doesn't come off.
Yeah, but why would you take your glue off? That's what I want to know.
Well, after I changed, I had a couple of punctures, and by the time I was getting ready to put the third tire back on, it looked like pieces of the base tape and everything stuck on the rim. It was all bumpy.
But that's still all right.
That's okay?
I'd still do that because what do you think? I just put glue on and stick another tire on it. It just moves again when it warms up and everything.
Yeah, right.
The pressure of the tire and
so there's a
heat of the rim when you're grading.
You know, it's really an art. There's situations like if you went just the first time and said, oh, well, I'll just put as much glue on now as I had, for example, say you have some glue buildup over a year or so or 2 years with a wheel. That's different than putting a ton of glue on at the beginning and just having a good, because it's cured, the glue cures as it builds up layers, and each layer of glue sticks to the next layer. So it's not as dangerous in that perspective, having a lot of glue on the brim, as just slopping a lot of glue on at the beginning, plus it's messy. Also with spare tires, always use a used spare tire that has it's been used, that has some glue on it. It'll stick a lot better to a which in the sense you have to change. Plus obviously, and don't, when you're out on a training ride, if you're using tubulars, don't take a tube of glue with you.
Let's not get stuck on the subject of glue.
Let's think it's stuck.
Any more on this before we move on?
Go talk to the mechanics at Wheelsmith if you want to know about glue.
Well, that's good. Look, I've been a pro 9 years and I only go to the bike shop. But it costs money, I know. But I'm not a good mechanic. I don't like working on bikes. I just don't like it. I don't want to change cables. All I'll do is change my handlebar tape and I'll put another chain on probably. But I love cleaning my bike, you know. I'll clean my bike, I'll clean the chain, I'll get it nice, like I said, wash everything off with suds, I'll rinse it off with cold water, but I don't spray it off with a hose. I usually get another clear little sponge I've got that's only for rinsing off, and just rinse it off with the sponge, just rinse it off, not spray it off, because then you get water everywhere again. And then just dry it off, and I'll get some window cleaning. You know, if you're using the window on the window, just spray all window cleaner over, wipe it off again. It shines beautifully. You know, get that lacquer up a bit. Just look after it. You know.
Pledge works really well.
How do
So
you
furniture
rinse it? 'Cause I've heard some people say, you know, never
That's
put
totally
hose on it,
right.
and other people say it doesn't really matter.
It depends. It depends.
Well, some of them wear that high pressure.
Don't take this. Don't take this as a product promotion or anything. But Mobby components are sealed bearing, and that's different. When you have open bearings like can't be wrecked and that sort of thing, you have to be much more careful. Some team mechanics use pressure washers. It's a different situation. You're not washing one bike. They have 10, 15 bikes to take care of. They got to get through those bikes fast. They got to get them clean fast. Plus, they're trying to keep themselves in a job. So they stay like they're busy all the time working on the bikes. They have all the time to overhaul BBs and hubs and that sort of thing. So it's hard to apply team to individual because they have lots of time. Most of you guys are probably trying to race and hold down a 40-hour job. So time is ultimate consideration.
But if you're going to use a high pressure cleaner like a Karcher or something like that, try and always spray from the top down, hold the Karcher up, spray downwards, not sideways like into your brackets, sideways into your block, not upwards so you get into your headstand, just spray it downwards and that'll be good, A lot of pros in Europe use it for cleaning their bike off when they first get home from training in the winter,
The hose, yeah.
They get the high pressure hose and they'll just stand at a distance and hold it up, get all the dirt off it, and then they'll clean their bike because the dirt there comes with scratches as well.
Yeah. The training ride there probably looks like a cyclocross race.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Something else that you should be aware of when you're going over your bike is cable wear, and it's especially important nowadays with index systems because they're super finicky about being lubricated properly, not being frayed, not stretched. Now that all the index systems have these non-stretch cables that are super important. So when you're cleaning your bike and looking it over, make sure that you are checking your cables. If you feel any resistance in your shift lever, it could be that you're any point where the cable's contacting the frame, whether it's in the housing or under the BB, that's clean and lubricated. And that you just notice there again, another situation. It can be as bad as a broken chain as a broken gear cable or a brake cable. You can weigh the differences, but one means you won't be able to stop, and one means you won't be able to go up or down a hill. So that's critical also. As far as maintenance of the bike, I think the minimum for a racing bike that's being raced every weekend is to overhaul everything once a year. BB, hubs, just basically take your bike and have it. If you don't do it yourself, take it to your shop, have them do the royal number, do it. Go into all the bearings, replace all the bearings, get it all ready for next season. You can start anew. You'll be assured that you won't have a bearing failure. But be aware of what's going on with your bearings in your bike also. When you take your wheel off, wash your bike, check your bearings, see if it feels smooth in your hub. Same with the BB. Drop the chain off, spin your crank. If if you can't spin your crank, you know why you've been losing all those races. Headset's the same. Headset's maladjusted headset is not that consequential, but they're expensive to replace. They take a lot of abuse. So it's very important to keep the headset adjusted.
Once they're too loose or too tight, they're usually pitted and then they're bad.
Right, it usually ruins the
Better to
headset.
keep them good. Can I just say something about brackets?
Yeah.
There's a Panasonic, one of the mechanics at Panasonic, Gilbert, used to say, good way to test your bike, your bracket, you know, apart from just spinning it like we've just said there. You can of course move it sideways, see if you've got some play in it, but to hear if there's water and stuff in there, if you spin it, you can't really hear it, you know. What Gilbert says, you put your ear on the top tube, spin the bracket like that, and if the chain's off it, you can really hear it if it squeaks inside. It's weird, you know. I told a couple of other mechanics, they said, it's rubbish, but it works, you know. If I've ever done it, and I take it to the bike shop full of water, he says. It's funny, you know. You just put your ear on the top tube, spin it, and you'll hear the creak and grind and whatever it's doing, you know. And if it's just running all right, it'll just it'll sound like the water sounds squeaky. And when you're on the top tube, listen to the top tube, you'll hear it. That's easy, isn't it?
So, overhaul the bike once a year minimum. If you suspect there's any problems with any of the bearings on the bike, just take care of them right away. The main thing is it's preventative maintenance. You don't want to get to the race. Sure, you can. There's some instances where there's a neutral support at a race and they can help you out, but you want to avoid that if possible. Real important thing is to take, when you go to a race, be prepared, like I said before, to work on your own bike. Take a toolkit. Just take the basic essentials that can save you from the situation where you won't be able to start the race. Obviously, you're not going to take your tool bag on the race with you. But headset adjustment, bottom bracket adjustment, spoke key, set of screwdrivers, Allen wrenches, just to cover the basics. I'm amazed, you know. I go to probably a dozen races a year for Mobby, and riders I've found have assume that there'll be some neutral support at the race and they can get a tool. Well, what would happen? I always think, well, what would these guys do if we weren't here? I mean, in a lot of races we're not there, so you have to be prepared. Bring an extra set of brake cables, bring an extra set of gear cables, extra set of pads, extra set of cleats. Sometimes you can crack a cleat. Another situation where you can be out of a race. Brake pads. Bar tape is nice to have an extra set with you too, just in case it's a stage race, you crash, you're not riding with these rags hanging down off of your bike. It just looks more professional. Also keeping your bike clean and keeping the tape new.
What kind of tape do you use? I guess half a question for Allan, as far as do you use like the plastic tape? Because I get the cork, and after you wipe your tires off a few times, it turns pretty much black.
Yeah. The old pro syndrome was always keep white tape. You know, everyone sees pictures of Eddie Merckx white Trezzo Star tape. But the new tape, we use this Silva tape. They provide tape to us. I like it because it stays relatively clean for a long time, and it's got some padding to it, so it's somewhat comfortable. Cork tape's really nice in that when your hands get sweaty, if you're not wearing gloves, you always can really grab on.
Right. Well, it feels really nice. It's padded. It just turns black.
It
picks up dirt.
It doesn't look good, and not everyone can spend $15 every week to retape their handlebars.
I hear.
Wake up.
I'm not sleeping.
I need somebody to fall asleep in this part of the presentation.
Adrian's still awake, he's just clicked in.
He's thinking about Friday the 13th.
He's a sprinter, they're all like that, right? Sprinters are all like that.
Bring a couple extra spokes. Bring a freewheel puller in case if you break a drive side spoke, you can't replace the spoke without pulling the freewheel, unless you have a cassette. Okay. And then you want to bring chain whips to remove the cogs.
Extra clean these wheel covers.
I thought I'd go over a little bit too, what to do in the situation where you do have a flat tire puncture during a race. Well, what do you do as far as what's the correct thing to do? First thing is,
Knock someone over and take their wheel.
First thing is, if you puncture in the field, and I'm sure you've got tons of input into this, but if you puncture, try to ride a straight line and get to the back of the field. If there's support cars, some races there's no support cars. Oh well, you might as well just pull over and whatever. But if there's rolling support with the race, get to the back of the field without causing other people to go down and ride a straight line. And when you get to the back of the field, raise your arm to signal right or rear, front flat, and then pull off to the right side of the road. Even if you're riding on the left-hand side of the peloton, don't pull off on the left-hand side of the road. It's dangerous for you, it's dangerous for the mechanic, and it's technically against the rules. In a situation where you have a big race like Paris-Roubaix or something where you have, and that's total chaos, it's hard to even apply any rule of that race, but it's dangerous because all the passing traffic's on the left-hand side, and if it is any kind of a road race, you'll have commissars' cars, their officials' cars, they're going to be behind the race. You want to stay out of their way, and the mechanic in the car will always be sitting on the right-hand side. He'll get out of the car. Now, you obviously know which wheel is flatted, whether it's your front or your rear wheel. So, save the mechanic a lot of problem. The best thing, get off your bike. Don't try to stay in your bike. You see a lot of guys that think that it's some sort of Indianapolis pit stop, and then they got one foot in the pedal, and they're on their bike, and they're going, oh, it's my rear wheel, it's my rear wheel, and they're trying to hold up the bike. Well, first thing is, if you're off the bike, you think, well, the remount and dismount time is negligible. You can hold the bike up for the mechanic, you can hold it steady. One foot in the strap, up off the bike swinging all over the place, he's trying to get the wheel in. Also, shift down into your high gear here so the chain's undetanged.
Before you stop.
Right, before you stop. If you don't do it before you stop, he's going to try to put the chain in on the small cog. Your shift lever is going to be back here for the 18 or 19, and he's going to be fighting it constantly. Another problem is with staying on the bike is, especially with rear wheel changes, is that if you're in the bike, your foot's locked in the pedal, you're putting pressure on the chain. You're pulling on the chain. So he's trying to put the wheel in fast, and you're standing there with your foot in the pedal, and you're pulling and he's pulling, and it's this tug of war, and the wheel's not going in.
Sounds like you've done this before.
Yeah. Many a time. So get off the bike, remove the wheel. In fact, if you have enough time, hold the wheel up in the air. If the mechanic can see front or rear, move it out. It's much faster. He'll change your wheel, you can remount the bike, because he's going to have to stop and pick up the wheel he changed anyway before he pushes you. Otherwise, when he starts to push you, if he hasn't picked up the wheel, he's got to run backwards and get the wheel. And there's the risk the car can run it over, or someone else will run it over, and then it's slower for him because he's got to run backwards, pick up the wheel. That way, you'll pick up the wheel as you're mounting the bike, he'll start to push you, his car will roll, the car will roll up behind him, he can jump in with the bad wheel, and off you go. That's technically how it happens in the pro races.
What I usually do if I've got a puncture, if I see it's back wheel, of course, like I said, I go to the right hand side of the road because that's the side the mechanic's going to be sitting. It's also for the cars that are behind the first car, they go down the left hand side so they can get a clear way. But I usually get off my bike if it's a back wheel puncture. Obviously I've always got my sprocket 12 or 13, which is my smallest gear. And I take the back wheel out myself. Because by the time the mechanic gets out of the car and he gets out and comes to me, I've got the back wheel up and I've chucked it on the ground next to me. So I'm just holding the saddle there, he comes, sticks his wheel in, puts it in, tightens it up, I climb back on, he pushes me off. But if it's a front wheel, I'll usually just put my feet on the ground like this with the top tube, lean over, undo the screw, pull the wheel out, chuck it on the side, and by that time he's got here, I'm just holding the bars, he drops it in, and I'm ready to go. He's at my side, so he just got me and we run together and we're off. You know?
Right.
I think for front wheel you can stay over the top
Yeah,
tube.
you can.
That way you don't have to mount
But
again.
you can stay over the top tube, but don't try to keep one foot in the pedal.
And don't try and put it in for him.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to push down on your bars to get it in, and he's trying to hold it up to put it in, and you're both like
Fighting each other, right, exactly.
So let him do it. That's
So
what
basically, that's what you're saying for both of them is hold your bike still and let him do the work for you.
Right. Now, that's the scenario of...
Rest while you're doing it. Take it easy.
That's the scenario for the pro thing, okay? Basically the same scenario for the average USCF racer is that the 1-2 pros get the good support. I mean, we do all races when we can in a crit or whatever. We can try to help everyone. In most races, what'll happen is all the wheels you'll be able to. They'll say, well, we'll take wheels for veterans, masters, and whatever, and juniors, and put them in a car. And so you're relying on a guy.
Somebody's grandpa.
Yeah, exactly. Or some junior's mother or something driving the car. She doesn't know anything about wheel changing. So practice it, and be prepared to do it yourself. And the main thing is stay calm. If you get excited, you're just wasting your time and everybody's.
I got a funny story. I've got a friend in Australia. He's been writing to me for about 5 years, and a couple of years ago I met him in Queensland. Went round to his house, and he was really happy to meet a pro and all that. I've been following his career, and he rode the Australian titles this year. He represented Queensland, and he got a puncture on the first lap, and he put his arm up, and the car was right down the back. But there's only 6 cars in Peloton, so it took him a long time to get there, and it was just before the hill. And the car got to him, and he stopped and took his wheel out, and the mechanic was in the back. It was like a van where it had a sliding door on the side, but the door was locked, so the mechanic couldn't get out. So the driver had to take the keys out, run around the other side, unlock the door, open the door so the mechanic could get out. He got out and put the wheel in the wrong way. He was in such a panic. So then he got the wheel out again, put it in the right way, got the chain on it, and the kid now got back on again.
That would be disheartening.
It really was. It's a funny story as well, It's just something, it can happen, It can really happen.
One of the guys that works for us worked at Paris-Roubaix 2 years ago, and he got a call for a flat, and he was so excited to get this wheel changed that he tore the opening, the knob off the door to open the door. I mean, the door handle broke off in his hand. He had to climb out the window to do the wheel change.
Jesus.
And so it was 88, and it was super dusty. He had to ride the rest of the race with the window down, which is bad because with all the dust you want to keep the windows up. And he had to reach out the door and open the door from the outside to change the wheels to get out. So there's a million wheel change stories, but it's an important thing because as much as you have to be relaxed, a few seconds can make the difference between getting back on the field or not, and then the race is gone. So, like I was saying, the point being, there's the professional way to do it, and then there's the way that most of you guys are going to run into it, and that's with grandma or grandpa driving the truck, and you end up getting the wheel out yourself. So it's good to be prepared and know what to do in that circumstance.
Any questions?
All right, that's about what I wanted to cover. If anyone here has any specific questions, I didn't want to come out here and make this Mavic products. So if anyone has any questions about Mavic products after this is over, I'll be happy to answer them at that point.
Are you giving any away?
Any ceramic rims or anything lying around?
Some of those ceramic rims.
Did you get a pin?
No.
Well, hey, I've got something for you.
All right.
Anyone that didn't get a Mavic pin, I'll put pins up here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good for the tires.
For the opponent's tires.
A lot of people have told me. A few directors as well. When I started cycling in Australia, it was they've done things to ride handicaps, like I was talking about this morning as well. We just had different groups, you know, like 10 groups where they put the weak riders half an hour in front and the good riders at the back, and if you caught them, you won, and if you didn't, you had nothing, you know. Didn't matter how much you trained or what you did, that was the system handicap. And if you wanted to win, then you had to ride together. Basically like a lot of guys here, I think, do. You know, like American system's a bit like Australia, and even though you don't have handicaps, a lot of you guys ride together and it's hard to find out about tactics, you know. I went overseas when I was 17 and spent 2 years as a junior in Belgium and a year as an amateur before I went home to Australia sick. And now I've been 1 more year in Paris as an amateur and 9 years as a pro. You get to find out a lot about tactics, but you know, I can tell you all about pro tactics if you want to hear about team chasing and all the rest of it, but you know, I think you guys just want to hear about stuff that's going to improve your ability when you're out racing and things. That's why I'm talking about when I was in Australia and what shaped me to be this type of rider that I am, you know. It's like the type of rider, well, Phil's another example, Phil Anderson. Stephen Hodges probably the same, and I think to a great extent, Greg's just the same. But the thing is with Greg and Phil, they've just got so much natural ability, they overcome any obstacles they make through lack of tactic, you know. Like when you've got strength above the others, then you know it's easy to wipe them out even if you've done more during the race. In Belgium, the guys start racing there when they're 15 and every race is a mass start. So junior races, juvenile race, well, what do you call them, schoolboy races, they're all going to have between 30 or 20 and 100 riders, you know, and sometimes they even get more, 150 riders. So they're riding in a big bunch all the time. They're learnt from the first day they ride not to help each other, only ride for yourself. Some guys do more work than others, and some guys are told by their parents, don't ride on the front. For instance, Yo Plankard, he's turning professional next year with Panasonic. His father was pro, Willie Plankard, he was pro from 66 till 85, I think. So like 19-year career, and he was like sit on, suck the wheel, beat him in the finish type of guy. Walter Plankard, you know, was his younger brother, and Eddie was their younger brother. A bit of the same tactic, but they were really smart riders, you know, but they've come through a school which taught them to be smart. But Yo, he's gone through the juniors and the schoolboys and the amateurs, and he's been Belgian champion 2 or 3 times. But always with this tactic of sit on and use everybody else's energy before you use your own. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to stick to that program all through my career because of the type of character I have that says I want to get out there and do it, you know. I want to be there, I want to show them. I've just got this drive that's sometimes just too hard to hold back, you know. The days where I go out there and race and I say, well, I can't be shagged today, and I'll sit down the back and I'll mess around and then I'll just hang around, and somehow something clicks and I get up there and I haven't used energy. It's fantastic. But it's a time that I can't, you know, it's a phase that I can't seem to get into all the time. Like I said, it's a bit of a weakness because you waste a lot of energy, you probably waste a lot of chances with big races. You know, once they're gone, you know. Had a trainer in Australia who was 20 times Australian champion, went to the Olympic Games in Mexico on the track. Hilton Clark was his name. Very good rider, really powerful sprinter and everything. Hilton was a smart man on the bike. And he said it's like having 10 marbles in your hands. And after the race, you want to analyse the race, and every time you've made a mistake, you chuck a marble away. So then you see how good your race has been. If you've made a mistake, chuck a marble away, chuck another marble away. For all these mistakes, that's energy you've lost, you know. If you finish with 10 marbles in your hand, then you've done everything right. So everything you've done right has saved energy, which gives you the best opportunity to do the right thing in the race at the end. Tactics is not an easy thing to talk about, but basically it's all it means is getting to the finish first. If you're saving energy and consciously thinking about saving energy, I mean, it doesn't mean you're going to sit on when there's a group away, but you're not going to ride in the front with them and ride in the wind with them and just sit on and say, listen, I'm not working, you know. That's like in the pros. But that's accepted. In the pros, when there's a bunch away, like for instance last year in Tour of Flanders, I had strict instructions from post because that's my race, but I was having conflict with the director then.
strict instructions that if I was in any break, I was not to ride on the front and I was not to attack the whole race, right? So basically, I shouldn't have been there because there was nothing I could do, you know. But being the watchdog I am, I was in the break with Fignon, Argentin, Darnans, all these big guns, and my work was not to ride. So that upset that whole group. We would have come to the finish, I'm like 100% sure of that. We would have been at the finish because we were 2.5 or 3 minutes ahead. Because I wasn't riding and wasn't allowed to ride, everyone was attacking. Because when I'm not riding, I'm saving energy, and they know the Tour of Flanders is my race, even though I haven't won it before. Even guys like Fignon and Argentin know it. So when I'm not riding, they're not going to use all their energy, so they're not riding through as hard as they should be, so the pace is not hard, and we're not getting enough break that we need to slow down and use tactics at the end. So I really stuffed up that break, although I was told to do it. The directors came up one time and screamed at me, you know, what was I doing, and Post told me to get out of there, or Walter told me to get out of there, and wait for the bunch to help the riders, because they really didn't want me to be there, you know, because they were trying to be a bit vindictive, you know. They wanted to they didn't want me to get any glory at that time, though. It was, you know, problems. But anyway.
Oh, the same like with Lammers in the field.
Yeah, there's other riders like that, you know, Johan Lammert's won the Tour of Flanders in 1980.
There was also, the tactic was that in the start, Johan Lammers have to take the double food and double bottles with him, because they have to take for Anderson. And Ludo de Keuler has to take the double with him for Eddie Plancard, because they could miss maybe the Musette in the feed zone, and they take 2 Musettes in the feed zone, and then after the little hills there is a breakaway, and Matthijs attacked with Vandenbroek and all those guys, and only Lammerts and the Keulenaar were with them, and the big riders were dropped. The leaders of the team were dropped, and Lammerts won and the Keulenaar were fourth. So there was also a little bit, the tactic, I got also a conflict with Post, and I got a conflict with the others 1 year. And they said to me, today you do only the Keulenaar or Lammers, I do the other guys. And so I was a little bit upset, and I talked with those guys. I couldn't sleep the whole night, and I make them really aggressive to attack that race and to try to win themselves. So you can see tactic can take a totally other direction than you think about. It's sometimes very strange how something turns out.
And with Lammerts there as well, he got to the finish across the line, won the Tour of Flanders. Like, for me, it's my personal biggest race of the year, but it's one of the, like with Milan San Remo and Paris-Roubaix, I think probably the only 3 really like major classics every year. And Lammerts won this race, like it's the only really big race he's won in his career. He's won a stage of the Tour de France and he's won other races, but this was like the pinnacle of his career, and they didn't even congratulate him after the finish. Post was angry at him. No one spoke to him. Dirk said it was like a funeral in there.
Yeah, it was we were so 1 kilometer before the finish line where everybody was watching him, and I was coming back. I was so happy that Lammers won, and Post came to me and would give me a hand and say congratulations. I said, no, I don't take your hand because you don't mean it. You have to pay Lammers more next year, and that's not your. It's not coming from here.
See, the thing
then we have big discussions about it, and then 2 weeks later it's going better again. And there's also things like that who didn't take the decision to go to another team last year.
The thing with Lammerts as well is the tactic with big team leaders like Peter Post is he's only got so much budget. And if he's paying, for instance, Tunis and Rooks and Van Poppel, if he's paying them $800,000 each or something, you know, they're there to perform. It's not for guys like the Keulenaar, Lammerts or myself or Guy Newlands to go out and win races when we might be only earning, for instance, 20,000 or 50,000 or 100,000. It's not for us to win big races because next year we'll be asking $500,000 as well. So they want to keep us in their place, they want to keep these guys in their place as well. When they don't perform, they cut their wages. That's what it happens. They'd rather cut someone's wages than give them more. They bring other guys from other teams who they think are going to win, but they never perform. We've seen that in the last 5 years of Panasonic. He's changing his tactics a little bit now, but anyway, getting back to that race of the Tour of Flanders, because I wouldn't ride, it upset the whole group, and then in the end Argentin and Darns got away, as you know, and
they stayed away till the finish. But the funny thing was, for about 10 k's, they were only like 200 metres ahead of us. They weren't going anywhere. And Fignon was like just about begging, come on, if we ride it, we can catch him. And the Panasonics were chasing behind for Plancart. They caught us at the bottom of the Muir. The other two were still only a couple hundred metres away. Fignon got off his bike in disgust and got into the car. And I said to Addy Plancart, how are you? He said, I'm shot. I said, oh, great. It's really good. I've been out there for 100 kilometres blocking and you're shot. But luckily John Tarlin was really super and he got away with Fondrest and Bowman and yeah, they came in for third place or something. But you see, tactics makes a real big deal in the pro races, but in your races you can't do that because the other guys are going to get dirty if you're just sitting on like saying, oh, I'm tired. I've heard that story before, you know. So what you really want to do is ride through with the other guys, which will firstly help the brake to stay away, but you want a soft pedal. You know, you want to go through as quick as you can, and as soon as you hit the front, just ease off your legs, you know. So you're just rolling through with the other guys, but you're not doing the pulls. Because by you doing the pulls is not going to win the race. I mean, you just doing the big pulls by yourself is not even going to keep the group away, basically. You want to leave that to someone else. There's always someone else like that, like me, who does that, you know. So that's the tactic to do, you know. Do as much as the other guys. Take time out to have a drink and have something to eat, or make it look like you're doing that every now and then and just miss a turn, you know. But the thing is, you'll notice if you miss too many turns, other guys will want to miss turns and then the whole formation will break down. So all you've got to do is get to the front and get off the front as quick as possible. Tactics at the end, that only comes through experience. I can't say when you want to attack. I can't say. It's like I was talking about Eric van Lanker the other day, who's won all these classics the last couple of years. He's a guy who doesn't have, he's got real good ability, but his biggest facet is that he attacks at the perfect moment. How he does it, he's in touch with our Lord up here or whatever he does, but he just does it. You know, I've seen him do it in the Tour of Flanders, in the Tour of Belgium in the first stage. Everyone was attacking. They eased 3 k's to go after a climb. Van Lanker attacked. I was right behind him and he looked around me. I knew what he's going to do. He just went and he was gone. He does it every time. He did it in Liège, he did it in Amstel, he did it in Wincanton Classic. All those races he attacked right at the right moment. It's not for me to say when or how or why, because I've done it just as many times as Dirk knows, you know, and it hasn't worked. I mean, do I do it at the wrong time? Are they chasing me harder than they're chasing him? Whatever happens, you know, that's luck. It's the moment. Because many times, you know, you've been the strongest in the race, as most of you will know, or you've been really strong and you've done badly, or you've missed a break, and other times you've ridden like a dog and you've been up there and possibly even won. That's how funny cycling it really is.
I have, like, the time he attacked and you knew he was going to attack, couldn't you have gone with him?
Yeah, but he was my teammate.
So you couldn't go with him?
No.
You had to stay back and block.
Well, he normally should help me in the same position, you know. But I was behind him. There was somebody else sitting in my wheel behind me, out of the wind. If I attacked, the guy behind me would have automatically gone with me because it was only 3 kilometres to go. But because Van Lanker was my teammate, the guy behind me couldn't see that. The guy in front of him couldn't see he was going to attack because he's watching the guy in front of him. 2 or 3 guys were in front of Van Lanker and say he was 4th and I was 5th. And Eric just looked around, saw what was happening with the boats because they were like stretched out and there was groups everywhere, you know, right as far as you could see. Saw me behind him and I knew that was the moment, you know. He had the perfect setup. I was behind him, out of cover, no one could see him because the most important part is when you first make that jump, you know. If you've got a sprint like yours, it's fine. You get 5 metres on them and if anyone can get to you, they're really good, you know. But me, or Van Lanker or some of these other guys, you're a bit of a steam train when you take off. So you need to get that speed, especially if you're coming out of the wheel. And he just flipped off. He didn't have speed. Rode to the other side of the road and just went away because everyone was like, 3 k's to go, what am I going to do, chase or not? The other guys behind were balked. The 2 guys in the front, the first guy had been riding on the front, so he wasn't going to chase. The second guy knew that if he chased, he'd lower his chance for the sprint. So that was it. Perfect timing. If you got it, you got it, you know, and if you haven't, well, that's, yeah.
Things are changed also because, like with Panasonic, with Van Lanker, so they have always the good moment to attack and then they win a big race. But I'm sure if Allan was riding in the time with the TI Rally team, with Jan Raas together, he will win certainly 1 or 2 classics. Because Raas said always to the guys like to Van Vliet and to Hoste, to little Peters or to other riders, now is the moment, you have to go, come on, go. But he said sometimes, fuck, it's not possible, I can't go, you have to go! And then he attacked and everybody looked to Ras, and you win a classic. It's like Oster did, like Van Vliet did, like Oosterbos did, like Lubbering did, but Ras was something very, very important in the team. He was like the team leader, but in the race, and he decided, now you have to attack, now you have to ride. And that was the reason we got such a very strong team, because everybody appreciated what he did for the other riders, and he could let win another one. And the difference with Van der Waarden is Van der Waarden is not so good, he never say it. If you ask him, how was it? It's okay, it's okay. You ask him after the race, how was it today? It's okay. He's never bad. He said always, it's okay. But Ras was really, he felt when somebody was in his wheel and he couldn't win by himself, he said to another one, now attack him. It's our team who has to win. But there are not so many riders like that.
Not many, none that I've seen anyway.
Right, let's talk about, like for example, you know what you have for strength. Like say, if I can sprint real well, but I know that I'm gonna be hanging on for your life. At some point, you have to make a decision to expend some energy to stay with the pack and try to go for the sprint. But if you work too hard to do that, you lose your sprint because you're tired.
Normally not.
No,
sprinters can get to the finish and they're still good.
I told a little story one time. I thought it was the first day, one or two guys here. One time we got in the team, Rick van Linden. Maybe somebody remember, he was riding for the Bianchi team, and
the guy I talked about this morning who used to sprint with 49.14.
Yeah, so he was very fast in sprint. And before every year you have two stages, the last day of Paris-Nice. There is a stage, you have to climb the tunnel room, you have to come down, and then you go along the beach. It's 6 kilometers in the wind with a very large road, and they sprint about from 2,000 meters from the finish line, they go full off.
Tanneron's 4,000 meters high, so it's a big climb. Start of the year, it's cold, it's dead, small roads, big rocks on the roads, I mean not loose but in the bitumen, but like really bad, so if you're a sprinter you're in trouble.
And that stage is only 57 kilometers, so it's very short. But you can lose maybe 7-8 minutes on the climb. And Rick van Linden could win that stage because often it's a sprint, they are all together. So we said to Rick, you have to sprint, but the hill is there. And we decided to keep two guys with him. And he was, after 100 meters, he was already 50 meters behind. And he was riding, and the two guys, they push him and they take him over with Ongena and Minkovic. And they took him over the hill, and then they're riding full down, and they're coming down at 6-7 kilometers of the end, and they were maybe at 500 meters back. And they were riding, they're coming at the end of the peloton, and all the riders were dropped, and they pass them, and at 2 kilometers from the finish line, they were already leading out the sprint for the sprinters, and Ongena said, come on, to Van Linden, and they go to the front, and then Van Linden said, I can't, it's not possible, you have to sprint, he said. They took him to his shorts, and he won maybe with 10 meters. So a sprinter, when he see the finish line, he can sprint. It's always like that. You're totally fucked. You see that line, you see it, it's like an explosion.
That's what I used to love about Van der Waarden as well.
Yeah.
So many races we rode, Dirk was there this one year and he's seen it, it's such a great feeling because Van der Waarden was the type of sprinter who had courage, he'd get up there and fight all the way, even if he was blasted on the hills, you'd be bringing him back and dropped again and bringing him back, and we like, I don't know if you saw the Trump Tour, first time it was on Trump Tour, he won a stage into
Harrisburg, yeah.
We got dropped, like, the climb was maybe 25 k's from the finish. And me and Eric were like 4 miles behind, And anyway, we got in a group with Van Vliet, and Van Vliet was in the team with us, and there was, say, 10 or 15 other riders in our group, so we started riding, and I was thinking already about Eric, what was going to happen. And Eric was, like really bad on the climb. We chased, caught group by group, let out the sprint from 3 k's to go. No one came past. First in the corner, Eric came out of the wheel and he won by 10 meters, But a sprinter can really go deep because it uses different energy, doesn't it? It's like the thing we were talking about yesterday with training. It's ATP energy is like direct power energy, that's sprint energy. But the other energy, the lactic acid energy, that's different energy. That's like riding constant speed all day. And even like Van der Waarden, we've been in races where he's been so dead and he sees that flag and he's like a raging bull, Vanderarm's got so much courage, you know. There's guys come down the right of the road and you'll see him, and even if he can't get those pedals around anymore, he'll hook to the right of the road and run right into the balustrade. You'll see someone else coming from the left and he'll hook them into the balustrade from the left as well, you know. He just wants to win. Even if he's dead and he can't turn his pedals around, and he's still good, you know, because of that courage, but also because the sprinter can do it. You just got to get him there. You just got to have trust. And a lot of times, like I said this morning, they're psychos as well, you know. They'll say, like Planko used to say, you know, I hope they ride away today. Oh, God, let a group go away today. By 4:80, I don't want to sprint. What do you mean you don't want to sprint? I don't want to sprint. I can't sprint, you know. They'll stay together and he's up there the last kilometre, pushing guys off the road and hooking them everywhere. And it's like, you know, they've just got this different mentality. Maybe you got it as well. Just haven't brought it out yet.
He almost hooked you today.
Before it didn't go, but now you know.
I told you about that guy in Australia. He was 34 years old as well, and he set that new world record flying 200 metres. 6'4", weighs 210 kilo, or 110 kilo or something.
10 kilo.
But he's really, really big, you know. He's 34. Why couldn't you do something if you wanted? I'm not going to say you'll be world champion, but maybe you got it, you know.
What do you use, like, if you're trying to get away on a break with people? What are some things that you'll try to do to get clear? You mentioned the one guy that you were kind of hiding people so they couldn't see him go off. What are some other things you try to do to get away? Because that's always like the hardest part, is to get clear.
Well, here's a good one. Dirk's worked with Peiper as well. I suppose you've all heard of him. He's won Olympic Games, he's been world champion in the pros, second in Tour de France. He won all the big classics. And they used to say that Henny used to attack with his slippers on. That meant when Henny used to attack, he wouldn't attack fast. He'd attack like an old steam train, like choom, choom, choom. And he'd stand up out of his pedals and he'd just look around at the guys he was attacking from. It was like he was riding with his slippers on because he was riding so softly on his pedals. And he'd get 1 metre and 2 metres and 3 metres, and the guys were saying, oh, he's not going fast anyway, we won't chase him. 4 metres, 5 metres. And then they'd say, well, who's going to chase him now? And then he'd get 6 metres, 10 metres, 20 metres, 30 minutes. It's getting time, who's going to chase? 50 metres? And he's got that locomotion going, and they never caught him again. And he won heaps of races like that, riding on his slippers, you know. It's a really good
It was the same like when Jutemel attacked, when he became world champion.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you can remember that. You get 1 minute, 2, 3, 15, and you keep on 15 meters, 20, and then he keep from 1 kilometer 20 meters, and then he was gone.
Because a lot of time, even in the pros, a real hard, fast attack that causes big reaction, you know. That's like, this man means business, let's get after him. Shoom, 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 shoom. And then we have like jam sessions, you know, basically in the pros, like they'll catch him, just like you saw yesterday on Paris-Roubaix. It'll regroup, it slows down again. Someone else attacks from the back, full speed. Someone else attacks from the other side. Someone attack from the other side. We've got to be with them. 3 groups will form. They'll come back again. Slow again, slow down, regroup. Someone will just ride away on his slippers and he'll go away. I mean, it's so weird, you know. It's just a feeling you got to have, you know. But some guys have got it much better than others. Other times, if you haven't really got it like me, you know, then you either have brute strength to do it, you know, so you overpower them and wipe them out, or you got to have, you know, it's just got to be a really lucky day, you know, or you got to pay them.
So I know, like, a lot of the races I'm in, people race very negatively, not in a bad sense, but they won't attack, they'll follow, chase anything that goes down the road at all. I'm just wondering if there's anything.
Well, that's the way they race in Australia as well. The only way you can race against that, if they're all like that, is just try and break them up. You just got to keep attacking, you know. You won't die from attacking, you'll only become a better bike rider. Thing is, and if you get 2 or 3 riders with you, and they're not riding instantaneously, don't dishearten, you know. Because you've made all that effort for nothing then. You might as well ride through another 300 metres, even if it's a kilometre or a kilometre and a half or a mile, if you want to change it over. But if you do it for another mile, you might have always been at 15 metres, and if you had of ease, they would have got on again. Whereas if they stayed at 20 and went to 25, they might say, well, who's going to attack now? And they'll ease and you'll be gone. Whereas you've still been on the front, but then the other guys will say, shit, we're away, let's go, you know, and they'll all start riding. Ferdy van den Hout, who's PDM director at the moment, or has been for the last year, and he was with Panasonic before that, he didn't have a lot of talent, you know, heaps and heaps of courage, you know. I don't know if you've ever seen Ferdy on videos, but used to get down there with his helmet pushed back on his head, and he'd be fighting his bike and snotting here, and his legs going everywhere, and kicking and gouging. Ferdy had heaps of courage, you know. He used to say, you really got to trick him, you know. Like, you got to trick these guys. He was forever trying to set up things where guys didn't get the gist of it. He was organising little combines everywhere and working guys against each other, and he'd say, well, look, if you want to win today, get up the front, you know, I want to win today. Like, you know, organising things around. There's so many smart guys, but it really comes with experience. And
but it's a team effort too.
Is it always best to ride out in front or toward the middle?
I always ride in the front. If I'm down the pack like I was yesterday in Parachute Bay, you might have picked me out towards the end. That means I'm knackered. If I'm down the back, I've lost concentration, I've lost my bottle, and I'm just like hanging in there, you know. Like Dirk knows that as well. If I'm up the front, I'm concentrated, I'm in the race. That's just me. I've always been like that because I've been that type of like aggressive rider, you know. I've wanted to be in the race. If you're down the back and if you're sleeping in the middle, then you're lost, you know. If something happens.
That's the same with Theo de Rood before. It was always, when he was good, he was in the front. He always the 10 first riders.
The thing is, when you're in front, you get in the brakes.
It's very important to have riders like that because the leaders of the team, they are sitting in the back, and there's a breakaway with 10 guys. You have always 1 or 2 in the front because they are always there.
Well, should you always react to a break? Should you let some people roll in and think they're going to blow off, or you just try to...
But sometimes we got a tactic post, called it, we moeten openen.
Yeah, we have to open up the race.
We have to open up the race. So guys like Theo and Allan, they have to attack before the leaders attack.
The leaders attack, yeah. Get everybody tired, you know. Right. That's usually what happens. Like
you got to open the race. He said it. So it's his expression. We moet openen. We have to open.
Sometimes you have to let other guys go. Well, you don't have to because it's taking a chance, you know, letting other guys go away. But what you'll do if you let other guys go away, you'll force someone else to chase. If you don't chase, they don't chase, they ride away. If you get to the situation where you think, well, no one else is going to chase, you've just got to do it then, you know. It's just a mistake you've made. You've gambled and lost. So the only thing is you can do is just attack and ride till they break, you know. It's like another thing is, well, if this is what Ferdy said as well, if you ever make an effort, make sure you go through with it. Don't make an effort and look around and say, well, they're coming, I'll set up. That's wasted. You've done nothing. If you make a decision to go after them, don't worry who's in your wheel, ride until you get them, you know. And otherwise it's wasted energy, because if there's some guys in your wheel and you say, God, they're in my wheel, these 3 guys, and they won't come past, you know, and you're 50 metres behind them, you've already bridged 250 metres gap, you swing over and say, come on, you guys, help me. And they say, well, you know, I can't, and you lose 10 more metres and you might never get on. If you make a decision to do something, then do it, you know. If you want to attack, if you want to bridge your gap, if you're not going to ride in the front like you said, let some guys go away, make someone else, stand by your decision. Don't be sort of, well, I'll do this, I'll do that, because that's indecision. A lot of times, you know, if you attack, like I said just before, take a couple of guys with you, even if they won't ride, perseverance will pay off. It's like even in the parade, sometimes when it's really hard in the finale, when they're riding, they're attacking, and sometimes you think, I'll never get there if they keep going like this. I'll never get there, I can't start there for the finale, and you just keep hanging in, all of a sudden it cracks, because everybody else has got the same thought as you know. You've got to think, if I'm tired, how are they feeling as well? And it's difficult, you know, because I have the same trouble. It's like riding in the rain. I was telling you this morning, some of the guys, if my hands get cold, I go mentally, you know. So I've got 15 pairs of gloves at home, I've got great big ski gloves, I've got thinner gloves, I've got cold weather gloves, I've got neoprene rain gloves, I've got gloves that like cover my weak spot, you know, that's it. My feet, you know, I might feel them for an hour after the race, but that doesn't matter, you know. They can be just ice blocks turning around. It doesn't matter to me. It's these hands that matter, you know. It's all tied up in different things. Any questions?
Just to digress here, and I may have missed this, and you may want to tell me, hey, look, sorry you missed it. What do you guys do? Do you guys have any special preparations for like real cold weather that you do? Is there any tricks of the trade? I know that there's some, what do they call them?
Yeah, we're going to tell them. Man. No,
it's really, well,
Because I get cold real easy all over, man.
There are not so many products here in America.
But yeah,
But it's like-
products are good, like Dirk's got all the products, but really clothing's the important thing. You know, in Belgium, Dirk's got, well, I got this special cream from a product called Knife. I like to put that on. That was took off in Panasonic. All the guys wanted to ask that. It was like a warm paprika cream, you know,
Okay.
natural cream.
Pepper cream.
Yeah, and
Okay.
in Europe they've got rudbecca stuff. It's made out of, it's a fat made out of duck fat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Duck fat, or wool fat you can use. And they mix that with a bit of warming up oil, mix it together, so you've got an oil and a fat lotion, and then rub it on the legs, and when it's raining, it's like perfect.
You use that just for wet weather, those heavy grease
Just
type
for wet
things,
weather,
just
but
to see
as
the
well,
legs?
if it's not too bad and it's raining and it's cold, or it looks like it's going to rain or whatever, I'll get Dirk to put some around my knees. Just around my knees. Get him to put some fat on first around my knees, and then get him to put the oil on the rest of my legs, just to keep the knees warm, you know? Because this is, if the cold gets into there, you know, it's worse, I think, than having it in cold in the muscles. But I really like leg warmers when it's raining and cold. I mean, for me, if it's raining, I've got leg
Racing
warmers
leg
on.
warmers for tights?
Oh, racing leg warmers, yeah, definitely. I usually have an older pair. For me, because I'm thin, got frames close to the surface, I cool down really quickly. But I really like riding in bad weather. It's funny, but I like riding in bad weather. And I was saying to some of the guys this morning, I've always been right into bad weather. You know, when it's raining and hailing in the morning and snowing and
We're
freezing.
riding home, so we only go for